We've talked pretty in depth, I think, about the different options with the Warriors, how a sign and trade would look based on what amount you sign him to. If you were to figure out a sign and trade, whether it would be Grayson or Royce or Nick Richards, what combination it would take. I think we should mention again that the Suns do not have a tradable first round pick. So that kind of hurts your negotiating stance. You really want this other trade partner to want your role players. And Brett Siegel, who came on the show last week, said basically that, you know, they're looking at offers for Grayson and Royce. They're figuring out what they could turn them into, but the Warriors are not interested in Grayson because of his contract. I don't think it's that big of a contract. It's only like 16, 17 million a year for the next 3 years. But apparently for the Warriors, they're not interested in that. So we did get word from Shams Charania today that the Suns have been, quote, aggressive in pursuing a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga and have made concrete offers while offering him a starting caliber role. But the Warriors are not interested in Phoenix's offers, which, you know, again, Brett told us that last week. Steven, your thoughts on the latest in the Kuminga sign and trade saga?
So just for learning purposes, you all, so let's put our learning caps on. Gerald, I'm going to tap back into your understanding of the CBA and salary cap. So the Suns do, let's say they find a miraculous way to entice the Warriors into Grayson Allen, let's just say, and they're able to push this sign and trade idea across the finish line. What are the implications that ultimately has for the Suns after they just undid a lot of the wrongs that they had going on by way of finding a way off of Bradley Beal's contract, at least in a significant portion of it?
Yeah, so again, it depends on the amount that you sign him for. But if you acquire a player by sign and trade, no matter what the amount is, you have to sign him to at least a 3-year contract. So you can't do like a 1-year or 2-year sign and trade. So he's on the books for at least 3 to 4 years. In addition to that, when you acquire a player by sign and trade, if you are above the cap and below the first tax apron, it hard caps you at the first tax apron, which is $195.9 million. So if you get hard capped at that amount, you cannot cross $195.9 million in salary for the rest of the year. So they're not, I think they're about $8.9 million below that amount right now. So whatever they signed Jonathan Kuminga for in terms of how the math works out, you could not be taking on like an extra $9 million in cap space through that deal. Otherwise, you would be at that apron that would hard cap you and the deal wouldn't be able to go through. So that's something to keep in mind. And for those wondering, when you're looking at that first year salary in terms of the math and the financials and what they can take back based on who they're sending out, if it's just Grayson Allen straight up going to the Warriors, that first year of salary would have to be in the $19 to $24 million range. Personally, I think the Warriors would just sign him for that amount because their camp has been closer to 20 million based on what we've heard. Kuminga's been closer to 30 million. So if it's 19 to 24 million, I think for the Warriors, they would probably count that as a win and just keep him. If it's in the 25 to $29 million range for that first year, Allen plus Nick Richards is what it would look like. And if it's 25 to 30 million, Allen plus Royce O'Neal works, but only if Royce O'Neal is absorbed into the Warriors' non-taxpayer mid-level exception.
Gotcha.
So these are all things to keep in mind as we're talking about these deals, because I don't think any of these other guys are on the table. Like, they're not going to wheel and deal Jalen Green for Jonathan Kuminga. I am personally, I just don't like the deal. If you include being hard capped, if you include the fact that they don't have a pick, so it feels unlikely, if you include the fact that like they spent a lot of the summer ducking the aprons and now they're getting close to that hard cap, I just don't feel good enough about the fit of Kuminga to be interested in that personally.
For sure. So now this is me asking an actual question from me, not just for the masses to learn. This is actually me. So if they are to go the route of sending to the Warriors Grayson Allen and Nick Richards, of course, the Warriors have been linked to Al Horford.
Yes.
If the Suns bring in Kuminga, is there a way for the Suns to pivot to Al Horford based off of what you can kind of assume he might be getting on the market?
Potentially. I think, I mean, for starters, we should acknowledge the fact that, like, from the Warriors' perspective, they probably would just rather figure out what they're doing with Kuminga and then sign Al Horford rather than have Nick Richards. But in this scenario, if they did suddenly want Nick Richards and say, nah, we're good on 40-year-old Al Horford, basically, I think the Suns would be able to do it, but it does depend on the amount that they sign Kuminga for, and they would have limited avenues to do it. You're probably dipping into the MLE, but you do have to be aware of that hard cap because Grayson and Nick Richards' outgoing salary would be about $21.8 million. So if you're signing Kuminga to $30 million for that first year, there goes that buffer that you had between them and the first tax apron. And at that point, you can't go above it, even with the MLE to sign an Al Horford or anybody else. So that's something to keep an eye on. And I do think, as much as we're talking about sign and trade scenarios, if they don't get something done, I would not be surprised if they go into the season with that 15th roster spot open.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about yesterday, Jordan Goodwin, non-guaranteed deal, the contract that they claim off waivers. Jared Butler, we reported, non-guaranteed deal. Him and Goodwin are going to be competing for kind of that third starting or that third point guard spot in training camp. So that still leaves the 15th roster spot, but the Suns are barely above the luxury tax, I believe, right now. So if they do go with Goodwin and they don't guarantee his contract, that's an easy way to dip below the luxury tax before the season ends. Then you avoid, joining that repeater tax, which the tax brackets changed this year. They got a lot more expensive. So I know this is all very heady financial talk, but these are things that are part of the calculus going on behind the scenes. And also, if you are in the luxury tax, your MLE drops from 14.1 million to like 5 million. So, later in the season, if someone gets bought out, or if you want to make a trade and absorb someone into your MLE, you're probably going to want more space rather than 5 million or whatever it is.
Yes.
So these are all things to keep in mind. I know a lot of people are very high on Kuminga. I was surprised how many people in our comments were high on Josh Giddey after the show.
Me too.
But that hard capping stuff is serious business. I think the Suns have to feel very strongly about the person they're bringing in and the fit, short-term and long-term, to do that to themselves when they just waived and stretched Bradley Beal to kind of get out of this cap hell that they found themselves in.
For sure. So I guess with all of that and kind of taking it all in, I just feel like I think there is something there with Jonathan Kuminga. The question is, though, is it worth it for the Suns to roll the dice, have the restraints that come with bringing him in via sign and trade, and then having to find other ways to go about creatively building out the rest of the roster and going forward? I just don't know. I just don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it comes down to. At this present moment, I would tell them just stand pat. You've done great work with the facilities that you have had this offseason. Maybe just be patient, wait for the next opportunity to come up, and then maybe that makes more sense for you.
We all silly like the mayor.